Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Happy New Year to all of the listeners, viewers, podcast fans, podcast
Mo Salah
haters,
captainers.
whoever they may be. Yes, it's another year stronger. I think it's going to be a good year, James. I'm feeling positive for what's going to come, for the pod, for everything, really. 2024, bring it on.
Let's have it. How was FPL Gameweek 20, which of course isn't finished yet. We've obviously got West Ham Brighton still to go this
Well,
evening.
it just felt like the most fickle kind of game week. I don't know. I kind of tuned out of this game week a little bit because with the AFCON, I didn't really know where I was going to go with my transfer. I felt like I was just kind of going through the motions in terms of who I was or wasn't buying. I ended up selling cash for Porro. Exciting. Um, Stuck
Wait,
the armband
don't
on.
dig out Tottenham, mates. None of that.
Boring, mate. Honestly. Are you still celebrating Arsenal's defeat? Are you?
No, I'm celebrating Arsenal's two defeats.
It just felt like, yeah, it was going through the motions. I captained Salah because you did,
What?
and
That's the worst reason I've ever heard.
no, honestly, I looked at it. I obviously had the choice of Watkins, Solanke. There was plenty of captainable options this week. Yeah. Um, and when I looked at it on the face of it, Anfield being the record that they do have at Anfield, um, and the state that Newcastle were in, I did think, yeah, do you know what? It's just the sensible choice. Your logic was right, and Salah is Salah, and he's going to want to score a couple of goals before he goes away to AFCON. I didn't feel like it was perhaps as obvious as it was. And look, he could have been a completely different outcome yesterday. But I captained Salah because you did, and your logic made
It's
sense.
so shit.
Well, I mean, this is it, right? But yeah, generally shit game week. Fucking blank from Solanke, blank from Porro, blank from Trent, blank from Gabriel. Ariola hopefully can save my game week.
What you on?
85 points, mate.
It's good, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm being sarcastic. Um, Watkins, Alvarez, Diaby, Palmer, Richarlison all returned for me. So 85 points, game week rank 344. I've gone from 1.1 million to 770k, James.
Oh, nice. That's a good
Yeah,
little jump.
yeah,
Considering
yeah,
you
yeah.
just
But
you just
do
copied
you know
my
why I'm
captaincy pick.
so meh? Because this is like the fickle nature of football. I felt like I didn't go on Twitter during the Liverpool game yesterday, but I can tell you probably exactly what happened on Twitter during the Liverpool game yesterday. I bet between the 10 minutes of Salah missing the penalty was everybody that captained him bemoaning the end of their game week, and everybody that didn't laughing about, ha ha, Salah's missed the penalty if you captain him, ha ha. And by the end of the match, which is probably only an hour later, the whole thing is completely reversed, right?
The Homer Simpson gif, innit?
Yeah,
Like back
yeah,
into the
yeah.
bushes.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm not digging you out or Spurs out or whatever. And I'm like, Spurs are taking pleasure from Arsenal's defeat. It was only 4 days ago that both of you were getting slapped, mate. One by Brighton and one by West Ham. So football can change, and so can my FPL history. Right? I was 2 million 4 weeks ago. I'm 700k. I am under no illusions that 2 weeks from now I could be back to 1.5 million. You can't. Arsenal are not out of the title race.
Of course you're not.
Liverpool
What
are going to be
what
completely
made you
different,
think I've
missing
been
Mo
publicly
Salah.
reveling in Arsenal's defeat
Oh,
anyway?
Happy New Year.
I
It's
wished all the listeners a happy new year, and I was just confirming the results for everybody in case people hadn't
confirmation.
seen that
Yeah, no,
day.
it's absolutely not a targeted specifically at that. It's just the whole weekend felt very fickle, and people are really swinging from one extreme to another throughout my life. And it's a good thing and a bad thing. I've never got too excited when things are good, but I also never get too down when things are bad. That's
That's it.
just my nature. And
Yeah, same.
it's a good thing, but also it's a negative, right? Because sometimes you find it hard to celebrate victories or things that happen that are worthy of celebration. I move on from stuff pretty quickly. But it's the same with this from an FPL point of view. It's been an incredible game week. My rank's gone up by 40% or whatever, back inside the
Good.
top million, which is good. Team's fairly set. Look, Ariola saves a couple of penalties today. I might even get in top 100k, mate. But Not
That's
likely
you
to
getting beat
happen.
3-0 tonight now then.
Well, let's see. Apparently Kudus isn't allowed to play. I thought you were telling me he was allowed to play.
We still don't really know. But that seems to be the word going around now, which I'm stunned about because they moved the deadline back. That was all
Mm.
the information that I had. I don't even know. Moyes might even be pulling the fast one, mate, and he plays. More interesting for yourselves tonight is Ben Rama's not been called up by Algeria.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, what? And nor is
That's
Maxwell Cornet. So we're going to battle it out for
so
position on the left wing, are they?
Ben Rama is the conclusion to the Bowen and
No,
the
he's not.
Salah and Son. There's a real giveaway. The Salah
No,
and
he's
Son
not.
replacements, which
No, he's not.
will
No,
be
he's
a
not.
theme during this podcast. We'll cover plenty of midfielders
Yeah,
across the
I mean,
clubs.
otherwise go on X.com because everyone else has already put out their lists and percentage chances and who the best replacements are. And
It's never as
otherwise,
straightforward as that
no,
because
because
you need
it
to think
depends on
about
who your other
how
players
you're
are
going
and are
back.
you going to get
Do
back to
you want to go
Haaland
back?
and yeah. Yeah.
How you getting Haaland in? Yeah, exactly that. It's not as straightforward as A, B, C, D, unless of course the value is absolutely irrelevant and it's just a placeholder, and you've got no intention of going back to Haaland because maybe you've already got him sitting there. Then sure, we could go through a list.
Mm. And
Spoiler: it
just
starts
kind
with
of
Cole Palmer and Jared Bowen, and then moves down from there.
just on the kind of like the fickle nature, it's like 4 days ago or 4 days before Saturday, we're talking about Man United's amazing comeback against Villa, papering over the cracks a bit, but they had come back. Then what do? Go and poopy the panties at Nottingham Forest. And yeah, it's really swinging at the moment. Everton were on such a good run, and all of a sudden they just can't buy a win or keep a clean sheet for toffee, James.
Well,
Um,
hey, you're
so yeah,
awake.
it's very swings and roundabouts for everybody, ups and downs, yo-yos, roller coasters, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that it's making for a very interesting football season.
Here we go. Only one team so far has won all three of the Christmas fixtures. You know who it is? So that's game
Well,
week 18, 19, and 20. Only one team has won all
it
three
can't be
games.
us because we haven't played our game week 20 fix yet.
Correct.
It's not
It would be you if you win tonight. You'll be added to that.
Liverpool.
True with
They
Arsenal.
drew with Arsenal. It's not Villa, not Chelsea, not Palace, not City because they've only played one of those games, right? They blanked in 18. It's not Forest. It's
I'll
not
give you a clue. They
Wolves.
scored 9 goals in the three games.
It's not Wolves.
It is
Oh wow!
Chelsea, Brentford, and Everton.
Just after we smashed them 3-0, they've come back and won nine.
Yep. nine
Yeah,
points.
it's enjoyable. I do revel in the carnage. I just don't want to get sucked into the. It's all great and it's all rubbish. But tell us, how was your game week?
Very interesting one, which started with I think most of us were probably going into this game week thinking like my team this week, and I'd kind of pre-warned like, okay, think ahead to game week 21 is going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of captaincy chat about game week 21 over the next 12 days or so, or 11 days, because it's tough. All right. We've gone from having this weekend options everywhere to next week scraping the barrel potentially with Salah, Sonny gone, Haaland maybe not back. In any case, it's Newcastle away. Tottenham go to Manchester United, City go to Newcastle, Liverpool at Bournemouth. Don't even feel the best for other Liverpool assets, for example. It's tough game with 21 captaincy. And I'd probably like to touch on that more next week rather than this week, because I think there'll be a lot to learn from the FA Cup games next week that might be helpful, i.e., what are West Ham going to do without Kudos, for example,
Hmm.
going into Sheff United, who might replace Salah for Liverpool, etc. There's loads of potential options for 21, but they're not as clear cut as this week. For me on Salah captaincy was exactly what I'd said to you about they're playing at home to the 19th worst team away from home in the league
Mm.
in Newcastle. And the only thing that was really nagging at me about not going Salah was, well, I know how good Newcastle can be. And for the first time in ages, have got a week to prepare. So there's every chance they may still be better. But I think in a week where they've got a home game and they were playing against a team that on paper has been struggling recently, wasn't really much of a contest for me, especially with, I know EO shouldn't play on your mind, etc., but it's close enough. It's like I don't need to sit and watch Mo Salah Monday night and
Mm.
be like hiding behind the sofa when it could be Alvarez's next best, or Watkins's next best, or Son's next best, or Bowen or Saka. So many options this week for captaincy. I'm on 74. like the majority of people, no clean sheets, basically. I think Alfie Doughty owners defensively are
Mm.
probably the winners. So I had Saka 7, Bailey 8, Son 9, Salah's 32 last night, Watkins 8, Alvarez 7. I benched Solanke and got away with it.
I would say so.
Oh yeah, no, massively. But then every other attacking player I've got has returned so far.
Yeah.
So this was always the problem. That's what we're trying to explain. It was like I don't want to bench Solanke, but I'm pretty confident all the rest of my players could well return up front here. So I've got Bowen to go tonight before I can claim that as a victory. But I never would have benched a player playing at home to Brighton who's an offensive player. And I've got
And
Areola
Areola. Yeah.
Areola still to go tonight as well. So yeah, pretty pleased with that. I've got two free transfers in the bank. At the moment, I'm up 6,000 from 209,000 to 203,000. Which is a small victory at the moment and should obviously get a little bit better tonight with having two players playing. But Saturday lunchtime, it looked like the game week was definitely going to end in the red arrow already because of let's start the new year in the best way by going cold turkey. Cole Palmer absolutely destroyed. It's like, oh wow, that's a big problem. And the two players I'd been eyeing up most for me as Salah Son replacements were Palmer and Garnacho. So certainly reaffirmed for me that Palmer is probably a go and get. Um, but I do have an awareness of the fact that Chelsea could blank in 26, not have a double before that. They've got Liverpool away in 22, City away in 25. Is it like, oh, I've missed the boat a little bit here? Maybe, could be. But he might even be my captain game with 21. So I think he's got to come in. I
Yeah,
think it
Fulham
could
at
be
home, but we'll
really
talk about
popular.
the Arsenal Fulham game. I mean, Fulham aren't bad. They went on that little bad run without Jimenez, but they did look good against Arsenal. Do you need money to get back to Haaland? Should he be available? So
So
the Salah to Palmer, for example, does that help the additional move, which is getting back to Haaland?
yeah, I mean that in one go, Salah to Palmer and then Alvarez to Haaland essentially does the trick. But I'm almost definitely going to come down from Son with the other one. Like I don't foresee me going to Kevin De Bruyne,
Is
for
there
example.
any thought in your mind to hold either of them, Salah or Son, with the
No,
view
no,
that they might only miss one game or two games or
not
something like
particularly.
that?
It's
No.
it's unlikely. They're
Yeah.
likely to miss three. I do think, as I said, if they play for the team that wins the competition, it might even be as many as five.
Mm.
And I think if you asked people who I wouldn't say regret, but those who've held Haaland through all these weeks that he hasn't played, listen, they're probably in an advantageous position for what's coming up next in the sense that he's already there, but probably could have had some. It certainly means they haven't gone into having all of Watkins, Alvarez, and Solanke
There,
recently.
there were there were points all over the place, so they definitely most certainly could have picked up points of a Solanke, or even if it's bits and bobs of Darwin Núñez in terms of assists and stuff. There were points elsewhere, so I do think you're right in that
Well, if
people
I
will have
mean for
missed it.
me, who was on the Haaland strategy with no Salah, that I've been holding Haaland through, I wouldn't have had Salah. I certainly wouldn't have had Trent for some of the recent returns. Big fat zero last night. Hello to anyone who took a -4 for him this week. Um, so yeah, I'm likely to come. It honestly, Suj, it could be that Salah's son goes to like Palmer and Garnacho for me. I'm less keen on the Garnacho than I was this time last week, which I'll explain when we go through the games. But yeah, there's a number of potential options for me. Ben Rama would be one of them, maybe even such just suddenly from absolutely nowhere. Richarlison, another Arsenal player. There's loads of potential options. What I need to figure out, the more important bit is with my final decision. It's not the just can I get to Haaland, it's the how am I then going back to Salah's son, which, as I discussed 2 weeks ago, might not be as necessary as it originally appears. But I think certainly at least for Salah, I need to know what the route is. My route will probably be via Bukayo Saka. So that's thinking kind of 3-4 moves ahead in terms of the strategy. So when I make the moves over this next week, I need to be thinking, right, what else might I need to do between now and Salah's return that would still enable me when I want to go Salah to Saka, Saka to Salah, sorry.
Understood.
So it's
Well,
leaving 4 odd million in the bank or so all the way through that process for me.
mm. Well, should we talk about these games then?
Sure.
Let's do it. We'll rattle through these. Of course, there's FA Cup this weekend, so we're now in a very sparse January after a very dense December FA Cup games, split game week because of the mid-season break, Carabao Cup to be thrown into there as well. So, with as with everything, and I think you put it quite succinctly on the internet, James, like hold your fire,
Yeah, can I
keep your
actually,
powder
just for the
dry,
benefit of
just
those who
don't go crazy.
don't follow on Twitter, which hopefully is most of you.
Yeah, yeah. If you
There's a
don't,
lot,
then
there's so
you're
much
genius.
information to learn before game week 21. And I know, for example, like Salah's already had one price drop last night. I think there was about 20,000 people bought him last night after the game. Do you know what? I just think it's robots that are pre-set up to make moves
Yeah, it must
determined
be,
on who
must
scores
be
returns
bots.
and stuff, honestly.
Mm.
Um, Surely, because he's red flagged as well. So I don't know how you. Oh shit! Now I want to go and buy Mo Salah. It doesn't make any sense. But Salah and Son obviously got red flagged quite early. So look, they are going down in price, no doubt about it. And I think people be seeing, oh shit, Salah's already gone. There's every chance he'll go down again. But honestly, if you can hold your nerve, please do so. The transfer window is open. That's the first thing, right? For teams
Yes.
like Chelsea, if you're like me and you haven't got Cole Palmer, I can sit here and say to you, he's a 99% certain to me, but he's got 2 games to navigate before game week 21 comes round, right? And he's certainly going to play in at least one of them. Hold your horses, right? So you've got FA Cup third round, which is going to give us a big, important part of the puzzle in terms of future blanks and double game weeks. That Arsenal Liverpool game on Sunday is massive from an FPL perspective. And the first game is actually really important as well, which is Crystal Palace and Everton, which is Thursday night. Because if Everton go out and then Liverpool lose on Sunday, we already know that Everton and Liverpool is on in game week 29. What are you thinking about game week 29 for already? I'm telling you, to see the picture will begin to impact moves for the strategists who will plan ahead. So we could be sitting here in a week going, right, Everton and Liverpool is definitive fixture in game week 29. Okay, I know Salah's my game week 29 captain, for example. We could be sitting here knowing that this time next week. So there's a lot to learn. The Carabao Cup semi-final first legs. I've got Chelsea at Middlesbrough and Liverpool against Fulham. Well, if Chelsea and Liverpool both win 4-0 in the first legs, then we could look at game week 25 and go, game week 26, sorry, and go, right, I'm pretty certain now that Liverpool, Luton, and Chelsea, Tottenham's going to be off. Then we can begin to factor, right, is Liverpool, Luton coming forward to game week 25, which is dependent on their result against Arsenal? Is it going to move to later in the season? We may get announcement of Man City versus Brentford, Bournemouth versus Luton. There are so many reasons to wait, honestly. Um, I don't get it. Like my perspective on the value is always where you can make the earlies in the first half of the season, take advantage and do it. Once you hit the second half of the season and we're now in it, the information is way more important than the value. And presumably, many of you who seek value have been building it up. My squad value now so is 105.
Mine's like 102. I'm
So
screwed.
but either way, whether you're on 105, 102, 99, whatever, the principle right now is way more important. That the information matters way more than saving on, oh, gonna lose zero point 0.2 here on Salah or something. Honestly, I think the information is way more important. So I'll be waiting before making earlys.
Okie dokie. Let's talk about these games. You talk about Chelsea there. So Luton 2, Chelsea 3. It felt like Chelsea kind of got away with it a little bit here,
Yeah,
and
in
then
the
they got
end.
away to 3-0. Luton had the higher XG. They had a lot of shots.
I mean, to be
The
fair,
front
Luton didn't have a shot on target till it was like gone 3-0, to be
No,
fair.
but they rallied really well at the
Mm.
end. Looking at the front four there, like Breuer, Jackson, Palmer, Madueke, I'd actually feel like as from my, I'd be like, yeah, I'll play that. I don't mind playing against that. Um,
Can you take Cole Palmer out of it as well, though?
well, yeah, but then if he's creating for the others, they just don't inspire fear, let's say, necessarily. And with Luton, I do feel like now they're starting to, and they have been for a little while, I would say almost like figure out the Premier League, like figure out what their style is. And they've had their style, but how to use it effectively in the Premier League. And they've been getting some decent results. And losing is never a decent result for anybody, but to only lose by 1 goal. And I think they haven't lost by more than 1 goal at Kenilworth Road all season. I'm pretty sure I heard that after the game.
That sounds right.
I actually heard that when Chelsea were 3-0 up. And
It's
then
worth
they were
saying
like,
though, you,
they've
you
come
have
back to
still
3
had
2.
Chelsea score 3 there, Arsenal score 4 there, City score a couple.
But they've been able to hurt them on the
Yeah,
other end, right? And other teams
absolutely.
that don't have maybe the firepower of the greedy six or whatever else will struggle. I think I think as a Luton fan, you're coming out of it still optimistic, and Chelsea just take the points and go. And there's still a lot of work for Pochettino to do there.
Yeah, it get glass half full, glass half empty. I feel for Chelsea after this one. So probably looking now and go only 1 point behind Newcastle,
But
and
Newcastle are doing rubbish.
yeah, yeah, but no one's probably ruling Newcastle out of top four, for example. So just by virtue of
I
being a
don't think
little
they'll get there.
no, another the bookies and most of us now at this stage, particularly with that away record, is horrendous. But just by virtue of being close enough, that certainly at least begins for them to be able to smell the prospects of qualifying for Europe, right? Whereas, say, if Newcastle and Manchester United had been winning comfortably over Christmas, then that gap would still be massive. They're there with them now, basically. So Palmer the standout, obviously. I did have a look at some of his returns over the weekend. I felt that was necessary for me because of as I'm a non-owner, right? So it feels like it's been a slow burner for him, and that's because obviously he joined from City. He never really started till what sort of game week 7 or so.
Mm,
In his 12 starts, so he's got 13 returns in FPL.
mm. He's on fire at the
In those
moment.
starts, he's averaging 7 points per game.
Hmm.
Ask yourself with this: if the game was scrapped and it was repriced now, what price would he be?
No cheaper than Bukayo Saka or that 8.5, I would say.
Yeah, it's
No
got to be
cheaper
sort of
than.
minimum 8, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd expect him to be 8.
So I think the point being on that is, and I did allude to it and say he would be under consideration for captaincy for me in game week 21. It's interesting for Fulham in that particular fixture as well. Is obviously they play at Liverpool in the League Cup semi-final on the Wednesday night. Chelsea played a Tuesday night. Then it's 12:30 on the Saturday. I know Gandhi said don't captain anyone in the 12:30 unless his name's Mo Salah, but Cole Palmer will be under consideration for me. And by the way, one little tip for game week 21: make sure you've at least got your vice captaincy playing on someone in the first weekend. That's an absolute given because remember it's a split game week, right? 5 games on the first weekend, seconds, 5 fixtures on the second weekend. So look,
That's, of course, if you don't have your captain on the first
you
weekend.
can captain some, yeah, of course. You can
Yeah.
captain someone on the second weekend, like if you want to go for like Saka, Trent, and that's fine. But make
Throw
sure
in.
your vice captain is someone playing on the first weekend, even if you don't fancy him. So it could be someone like Watkins away to Everton, for example. I think would be like a sensible vice captain play in game week 21. Palmer would be under consideration for me. We should start thinking of him as that, a sort of 8 to 9
Underpriced.
million
Yeah,
midfielder.
underpriced.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not underpriced. I understand. Remember, they priced him up when he was a Man City player as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but with current information, he is underpriced. Yeah.
And he's not the only Chelsea player that I think can be considered as enablers. So Malo Gusto's
Mm.
4.2 now.
I
Um,
considered him ahead of Porro just as because I didn't think you'd keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth. So I thought, why don't I cheap out and go to Malo Gusto? But there's always the looming threat. I didn't know enough about Reece James's information. What is Reece James's
Rich James
information?
out for about 3 months. You can always ask me,
Oh,
Suj.
fine. Yeah, I mean, I was
But
out at the shops with the missus, so I didn't.
I mean, this goes for the other players as well. What you've always got to be aware of with Chelsea is transfer windows open, right? So God knows what they're going to. Who knows if they're going to do business or not this month? I would suggest that Ben Chilwell's return will potentially have an impact on Malo Gusto because whether he wants to play two fullbacks like that. That said, Pochettino said several times over he doesn't particularly foresee Chilwell as a left back in a back four. So I think that'll relate back to the Thiago Silva problem. Like in a weird way, if Silva got injured and they had to go Badiashile and Disasai or Colwell centrally, for example, then I think there's every chance Chilwell and Gusto would both play together. But there's a little caveat there for the Gusto owners or investors just to keep an eye on that Chilwell news. We do think he's close. It'll be this month, we think. Noni Madueke's only 5.3. And, we get these players during the course of an FPL season who are non existent in the first half of the season, suddenly come from nowhere. It would be a big call why he's returning for Pochettino to take him out of the team. Similarly, if he was going to play regularly, that's a mad price, 5.3. Jackson's gone to AFCON, which means he can't get booked, presumably, over this month, but I'm sure
Mm.
he'll still find a way. Breuer's 4.9. He's going to play up front at the moment, isn't he? And I think most people will be diverting their moves towards midfield, but let's give you an example that, say, someone's already, I don't know, say they don't have Salah, just as a hypothetical, and they want to move Son to something like Saka that's not a million miles away in value, but they want to find a way to get to Haaland as well. Well, maybe something like Breuer's going to enable that sort of thing. Your timing wouldn't be terrible. He's almost definitely going to start in game week 21. And interesting, Raheem Sterling, no minutes. That felt like the big
Yeah.
headline of the weekend because remember, obviously, he was suspended against Palace. So I think we'd widely assumed that Sterling and Palmer would definitely start alone. He didn't even get on. I don't know. Is there something in that?
It's been a hectic schedule. I think I'd put it down to that.
But
Although he had the
he didn't
gap when he
play.
got suspended.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I did have the gap when he got suspended.
Interesting one.
Hmm.
Interesting
One to
one.
keep
So,
an eye on.
with that in mind, it might be that suddenly Madueke might get like a run of games. That's again, you've got two Chelsea games of information this week. Could we sit here next Thursday, Friday, and go, "Oh shit, this guy's an option all of a sudden"? Maybe. The caveat with Chelsea, like I said, you need an awareness that there's away games at Liverpool in 22, Man City in 25, and even the likes of Palmer, with fixtures of other teams in those game weeks. Actually, genuinely, he may end up on people's benches again. And of course, they could blank in game week 26. So you need an awareness of that. For Luton, Ross Barkley was exceptional again, Suj.
Hmm.
I hadn't seen too much of their games in between, but I thought he was really good against Arsenal and he was really good at the weekend. Even scoring a header from a corner is a little bit of an unusual one. He's 4.9. Andros Townsend is 5, puts good delivery into the box. There's a relevance to him in a second as well. Elijah Adebayo, we think has got preference up front, is 4.8. I mean, would you rather buy Adebayo, who looks like he's going to play every week now, Serge, or Breuer, who at zero point 0.1 more probably gives you Fulham at home, but then a problem? Like, where would you rather invest?
Back at you, James. How many of Luton's next fixtures are home fixtures?
uh, 3 of the next 5
Then I'd
or
go with
four
him.
of the next 6, depending on how
Yeah,
you feel.
if they've got a lot of home fixtures, I would go with the Luton asset.
Their next 5, Luton, is Burnley away, Brighton at home, so offensively is fine. Newcastle away, that might even be fine. Sheffield United at home, Manchester United at
Hmm.
home.
Yeah,
Before
I would go with him.
before they may blank themselves in game week 26 if Liverpool get to the Carabao Cup final. Other than the Liverpool away game, and to be fair, Newcastle away in 23, their fixture run is fine until the FA Cup quarterfinals. I feel like that could flip with Carlton Morris. But the Luton headline one is a player we spoke about on Patreon on Friday, Such Alfie Doughty. So
Yeah, I don't know why, but I was put off by his price, James. Instead of like a Porro or
no,
Gusto,
I
he
get
was
that
there,
actually. I
4.4.
understand
I
it.
was like, I want to, if I'm buying a Luton defender, he's got to be a 4 or 4.1 or 4.2. But that's, I think it's stupid thinking. I don't like my logic, but I was put off by his price at 4.4. And I don't know if he's gone up now to 4.5. Probably not, right? People aren't steaming into him. Yeah, he's still 4.4 and only 1.5% owned.
If I was wildcarding now, I think go in. And there will be a few who can't bear their teams and the second wild card is available and they'll be steaming into. I don't recommend
Five
that,
assists
guys,
this
by the way.
season's good.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's the sheer volume of what he's doing. He's like he's a cross spammer basically, right?
Second on the BPS at the weekend as well.
Well, it's 2 assists.
Yeah.
And Luton had a disallowed goal just before their first, and that would have been his as well. Admittedly, it was him that was offside in the build-up. So with them, you need to think as well that there's two possibilities of a double game week coming before a blank, right? The Liverpool game could get brought forward to 25, maybe even 24. And obviously, we've got the Bournemouth game to rearrange. It's not unthinkable that they had 2 double game weeks in the next 5. I think that's probably unlikely at this stage, but it's not improbable. And even if, say, their double in 25 is United at home and Liverpool away, and you go, oh, right, shit. Well, he's on a lot of the set pieces from the stuff. As seen per the way Liverpool defended Sven Botman's goal last night, right? It's not make out he can't get returns. And the whole potential is there because he's going to be in a bonus regularly if he returns for them. And I get what you mean about it feeling too much. You think, well, if I want a Luton defender, just get for 3.9 or something like. Nah, get him.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
but big caveat. Issa Kabore has obviously gone to AFCON with Burkina Faso, and it probably is going to mean that he plays right wing back rather than left wing back. I do think that pulls away his appeal a little bit. Set pieces and stuff still absolutely fine, but obviously on that side, he wants to come back onto his left foot and come back in. Whereas his most dangerous ones, I think, is when he's on the left-hand side and he whips the ball in with pace, and it's really difficult to defend. So I think the fact that he'll probably, and it's not a certainty because they can use other options, but he probably goes to right wing back will less his appeal slightly. But yeah, I'd punt him at the moment. I'd rather he was sitting in my squad than like Pau Torres at the moment.
Yeah, I can completely see the appeal with that one, James. Should we talk about Villa top of the table, or at least they were at the end of this game? Three, Burnley two. In the end,
I don't
like
think they ever
they
went top, did they? I think it would be on Liverpool
oh
goal
were they
difference. I
joint
think so,
joint
yeah.
top on points at least? And when you're a Villa fan, I think that's enough to say that you're top. And I'm not gonna
Oh yeah,
um
claim. Any football
Yeah,
fan
yeah,
should claim whatever they
I'm
want, right?
not gonna piss on that parade. Let them have it. They made hard work of it in the end. They probably deserved to win and had the XG and the shots and the chances and stuff, but just made hard work of it by continuously letting Burnley get back into the game. And look, Villa Park is now Fortress Villa Park, so for Burnley it was a
It,
free
it
hit, wasn't
it
it?
it wouldn't have felt like it if they lost. If they didn't win, because it
Mm.
would have been drawing at home to the bottom two in consecutive home games. So it was interesting. I think who's your host on Monday Night Football? I've forgotten his name. David Jones. He said last night it was like suddenly it was like Villa are unbeaten at home in X home games, and I did have a little chuckle because it was only like over a week ago we were going. They've won how many games in a row? So now we've moved it to go. It's unbeaten and good. You should be able to claim it, and we know it is a really difficult place to go. But that's interesting that they've now played Sheffield United and Burnley in consecutive home games and struggled to win them. And you're quite right; they probably did deserve to win the game at the weekend. The common denominator between the two home games and the defeat at Manchester United is no Boubacar Kamara, who will importantly be back from suspension for the trip to Everton. And I think he's been a big miss. And I think Emery gambled on the team lineup here again, similar to what he did against Sheffield United. He took his Dendonka back out the team. And really, the only difference was you've now got Ezri Konsa playing right back rather than Matty Cash, who we now think probably missed out the weekend. So have you still got him or did you sell him?
Sold.
Sold. We now think probably missed out the weekend due to illness rather than an arm injury. We're not, something's not quite right there. But yeah, Consort right back instead, I suppose a little bit more secure and allows a bit more movement of the parts, and Moreno to bomb on from left back. On Moreno, he'll be attractive. Luca Dean, we think, could be back as early as game week 22. So it's just a consciousness of that. I think for the likes of me on Bailey, the likes of you still on Diaby, I'm guessing, Such.
Yes.
We take the returns at the weekend. There's every chance they play again against Everton. I'd say Bailey more likely than Diaby, but it's going to become a problem for one of them. I think it's not quite clear which one as yet. I think Bailey's got the favouritism personally. I think even more so if Ezri Konsa is going to regularly play in this right back position. But I am just awaiting the Leon Bailey injury, to be honest. Douglas Luiz at 5.5 is obviously a consideration. I think my point of that is Salah's son owners shouldn't, I think, at this stage be going to Bailey or Diaby. Douglas Luiz, for his consistency, certainly can be considered. A couple of notes on Burnley. Obviously, goal for Lyle Foster, which he took really well. And it was noticeable to me that they were a little bit more direct in their play. Now, I don't know if part of that, the goal was kind of an untypical modern Vincent Company Burnley goal. And there was the other incident he had where there could have been the handball incident against Carlos, which for me personally, you can't call a denial with a goal scoring opportunity because actually his arm knocks the ball into Foster's path, unfortunately. So I don't think he should have been sent off. He's 4.8 as well, Lyle Foster.
Yeah,
Uh,
no. What are you doing? Trying to
He's
build a
he
front line of less than sub 5 million
no, but
strikers
I'm
here.
I'm I'm trying to think outside the box. I'm thinking some people will need to find Haaland money in alternative ways. So
Hmm.
let's add that to the conversation now. Adebayo, Breuer, or Foster. And Foster's not going to AFCON, by the way. South Africa have not called him up.
Yeah, I have no problem with adding him to the list. I'm just seeing what my squad value is, James. 102.2. Yeah, people like me who have no money would need to do it.
I would probably prefer Foster over the other two options. Actually, now he's back in the team. Luton at home next as well, so timing might feel nice. Jordan Bayer went off injured quite early in the game. The Sky listeners will know he's injury prone. We've certainly learnt that this season. He was replaced by Hannes Del who I can't profess to have seen a lot of the game on Saturday, but whenever I have seen him, I thought you're not ready for this. Al Kill has dropped to 3.8. And I'm not suggesting that anybody goes there, but it might be one to keep an eye on as a real enabler further down the line. Great result for Villa. Doesn't matter
Mm.
how at the moment. Keep winning. Keep your head above 2 points per game. And while you do that, you're potentially in a title race, and certainly will finish top four once you stay above that.
Brentford losing at Crystal Palace, mate.
Mm,
5 defeats on the trot.
yeah.
Is Ivan Toney 4.9?
No, he's not. Ivan Toney's 7.9. But there is another Brentford player that I would say is under consideration for me, actually. He's Keane Lewis-Potter, who's 4.7. It's a midfielder before you
Yeah,
ask,
as
Suj.
opposed to a striker. Yeah, I know.
Again, another one who obviously could have a double brought forward to 25, but that wouldn't particularly be the reason why, actually. It'd actually part be looking at game week 29. Yes, really. They're scheduled to go to Burnley in the FA Cup quarter final weekend. Their fixtures after Forest are bad. Tottenham, City, Wolves away, Liverpool, West Ham away, Chelsea, Arsenal. They're in trouble. If they
Mm.
don't win that Forest game, they're in big trouble. But
And you
Lewis
can see, so
Potter,
if someone comes in with proper money for Ivan Toney as well,
I don't think they sell him now for any
I don't
money.
think they can afford to. Staying in the Premier League is worth too much. But
Yeah, I
also,
don't I don't
as
think they sell
people
him for any
start
money.
throwing a lot of money around, it could.
I think for Brentford to sell now at this point, considering the trouble they're in, I think we might be talking 100.
Mm,
I think at 100 you have to sit down and go,
take it.
should we?
Yeah.
I don't know, because then at least then that's your loss of revenue, basically, for pre Premier League TV money, for example. It would stabilise the club in the very worst case circumstances. But Brentford's not the sort of club that would be in trouble should they got relegated. They would instantly be one of the favourites to come back. They're a well-run machine. We know that. Lewis Potter, I quite like. He's obviously scored at the weekend. I'd mentioned him on a piece I did for patrons last week as well. Obviously, when they're going to a two up front at the moment, he's basically him and Visser, so he's getting favouritism over Morpay. And Bumo's obviously injured till we think kind of sort of Marshish. Visser's going to AFCON now as well. So is it Tony and Lewis Potter up front? And I think it might be. This was the first time in quite a while that I think Brentford have played a back three/back five in a game you probably wouldn't have expected them to. And I think a big reason for that is Godos and Roslev. Godos is also going away. He's playing for Iran in the Asia Cup. Not suitable as wing backs, particularly Roslev. Sorry, not suitable as fullbacks. Wing backs okay, fullbacks in a back form not great. Plus Nathan Collins obviously had a difficult game in midweek, so a little bit more security back there with Zanka playing. Ben Mee will be back for the Forest game. That's a plus. But I think unusually for them, when this Forest game comes round, rather than going 4-3-3, because the problems are so amplified defensively, primarily because of Henry and Hickey's bad injuries, that they might stay with a back three. And Lewis Potter might be the off the ball movement off of Tony. Now, it could be that it's Tony and Morpay and they go that way. If it's a 4-3-3, then Lewis Potter's definitely going to play one of these wide positions. And I think he's an enabler that can be considered as your eighth player. And he's probably not damaging enough that you think regularly enough, oh, shit, it's Palmer. I don't want to leave him out, for example. So Lewis Potter's under consideration for me. Michael Elise and Eze will certainly be consideration for those who want to invest in Palace. Elise's 5.8, Eze's 6. What I really like about Elise more at the moment is the first goal at the weekend that he scores. He's obviously on a good little run. He's got like 4 in 3. He's obviously come back with his own injury problems, as has Eze recently. That first goal, though, is not a Michael Elise goal. It's an Elise goal in its final execution because of its brilliance. But Michael Elise being bothered to arrive on the back post is not something I've seen very often. So a little bit of desire there to perhaps get himself greater returns. I don't mind Michael Elise, particularly if people are in a luxury position where they can bench him this week. Because investing going into Arsenal away, despite Arsenal's last 2 results, doesn't feel right. So if you're in a position where you're thinking, right, I'll bench him this week, but my game week 22 looks uglier and they've got Sheff United at home, I can see why people would want to go there. What do you think,
Mm.
Elise versus Eze?
Can I say neither?
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can.
I just, yeah, it doesn't inspire me with confidence. I'm not sure under what circumstances you'd particularly want it. Like you described it as if you want to invest in Palace. I just, yeah, I'm going to say neither, James.
If you can
I
use
just
him
don't
as a
think
ro
I'd go there. I'd go somewhere cheaper, like a Garnacho or even like Socek or something like that. I'd just go cheap, mate.
if you
I
can
don't think
use
those
him
inspire
as a
me.
rotator option, their next four home games are Sheffield United at home, Chelsea at home, it's just scored at Stamford Bridge, Burnley at home, Luton at home. So next four home games have got the bottom three. Now that does take us all the way up to game week 28. And if they did play in the blank, it's another home game. It's in 29. It's Newcastle at home. So I don't mind it. He's not out the running. For me, it's Elise over Eze, I think, at this stage. But I also think it's probably a no. Tony is a captaincy option in 21, isn't he?
No.
Why
Until
not?
I've seen him lace up a pair of boots and get on a pitch, I would not captain him.
He'll absolutely score when he's a certainty.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
I would, for those who want to do it and want to write this beautiful narrative, etc., do again look at those fixtures afterwards. And I'm not quite sure with the wanting to go back to Haaland, Watkins' form, Solanke's form, Alvarez if Haaland is out for longer, where you're finding the place to go to Tony beyond the narrative. You can go Solanke's fixtures tough. And I said last week, I think Solanke potentially is expendable, and I still feel that, but it wouldn't be going to Tony as part of that. That's even more expensive as well, anyway. So yeah, if people want to write their kind of 1 week punt stories, be my guest. But otherwise, I'd be waiting, I think.
Let's talk about Man City 2, Sheffield United nil. I mean, could you have expected anything else? Phil Foden clearly puts himself in that bracket of Son and
Yeah,
Salah
he's
replacements. It's
massively under
just
consideration.
too obvious a choice, isn't it, really?
The way Newcastle
Um,
defended last night helps as well.
well, I was going to say, James, like you're talking about moving off Alvarez maybe back to Haaland, say Haaland wasn't available. Why is a Man City player not a Game Week 21 captaincy consideration? Because it's an away fixture?
I still think Newcastle way is rough, isn't it? I'd go to St James's. I think that Nottingham Forest won at St James's probably taken a little bit of the fear of going there away, maybe. But I think at the moment we'd still treat that as a one-off. Going to St James's is still one of the toughest away games you can have. Now, if Haaland's fit, i.e., plays against Huddersfield next week, and we're like, oh yeah, he's going to play, then I think a lot of us will just smash our teams up and just captain him straight away because the alternatives aren't good enough in 21 to say, I'm definitely sure I want to take him on. You haven't got Salah at home to Palace, unfortunately. So it might be that in 9 days we're sitting there going, yeah, shit, Haaland's fit, get him in, captain him. That's the solution. Would I want to captain Foden or Alvarez at Newcastle? Not sure. Not sure about that particularly. My concern with Foden isn't him. It's always the same. And we've got two players coming back into this team soon in Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne. And I can't help but thinking that De Bruyne is going to have an impact on Foden, especially.
I want to buy Kevin De Bruyne as soon as he's available.
I'm less keen on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got no right logical reason, James, other than I just want to get him in.
No, well, I know what it is. It's I've got the money to go from Salah to anyone. Oh, he's the most expensive player I can have. Is the timing right? Oh, look, it's Burnley at home, Brentford away, Everton at home, Chelsea at home, Bournemouth away, Manchester United at home after Newcastle. Listen, this is a good run of fixtures for City. There's challenges in there, but for City, that's a good set of fixtures, I think. So I can see why people would want to go there, particularly with no Carabao Cup semis or Carabao Cup final to worry about, no Champions League to worry about for a number of weeks, and obviously the high probability of 25 being a double, which would be Chelsea at home, Brentford at home. Certainly wouldn't expect an announcement this week, but I think once the FA Cup third round's gone and stuff, then we may be looking at getting towards a potential. That's the clear most likely week now. He's game week 25 for City against Brentford. Unless City get the FA Cup, then that potentially changes the game. They've got Huddersfield at home, so I would suggest that's pretty unlikely at this stage. So yeah, it's just a concern about the rotation on the minutes at the moment for Foden. But yeah, he might well be the one for me. So just absolutely under consideration.
I think
Can,
he will be the one for me.
can I give you a
Go on.
couple of mad stats on this game? Because I think this
Yes,
is
please.
interesting. Do you know how long the ball was in play?
65 minutes.
So it was 69 minutes, 41
Oh,
seconds.
not bad. I was not far off.
No,
This is high,
that is
so high.
massive. It's
So high.
absolutely huge. It is.
Brentford can take it down into the 40s sometimes. So, yeah, I thought if City have dominated the game in possession, then it's going to be high. 65 would be high. 69's
I
no
think
laughing at the
to
back.
give you context, last season the average was in kind of the 56-minute
Yeah.
ballpark for a Premier League game. Now that average has obviously gone up this year because of more added time and stuff, but that is by far the most. Ball in play, 69 minutes, 41 seconds is long. Generally, most people are targeting sort of 60 minutes in play. You know what makes this statistic remarkable? You know how long the game lasted?
94 minutes.
It was 93 minutes, 51 seconds total. The
Okay.
shortest Premier League game of the season.
And the highest ball in play. Yeah. What was the possession for Man City? 75, 80%?
It's just that just keep the ball in play, aren't they? They have
Yeah.
looked, and I didn't see a lot of the game at the weekend, but I think we can visualize what it would be from the bits we've seen. But against Everton, they had their control back. And
81%, James.
yeah, I mean, it's not unexpected, is it? Rodri was completing a
Wow.
pass on
Okay,
average.
James,
You've
let's
just
do
seen
some
it.
stats. How many
You've just seen it.
passes did they attempt? Not did they accurate, but how many passes?
It's second most in the Premier League game, isn't it?
I don't
It's
know.
900 or so, is it?
1,000 passes.
Yeah, madness.
944 accurate passes.
Rodri completed a pass every 36 seconds.
Joke. Joke. Dominance.
So,
Oh,
but they
oh.
do look, if you look at them positionally as well, to do look like they're settling a little bit more. And I think John Stones being injured again might mean that we get a little bit more advancement from the two fullbacks. And I'm not suggesting anyone goes and buys Josko Vardiol, but I think we're going to get a bit more of that from left back and maybe even from Carl Walker at right back as well.
Don't
When they
forget the opposition passive as you like. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And that's
Mm.
why it's difficult to look at heat maps from this particular game because they're just camped in the other half. If you look at the disproportion between Will Asula's average touch position and the rest of his teammates, it will give you probably a little bit of a giggle for the weekend. He played up front. Neither Archer or McBurney did. They had the three ineligible players, Amir Hodzic, Harmer, and McAtee, obviously unavailable this weekend through suspension and eligibility. They'll all be back for the next game against West Ham. James McAtee will be under consideration for me as well, Suj, because I think he's the best. If I want to go under 4.5 midfield as an eighth attacker, I think he's still the best option. I don't think there's anything worth going at 4.3. If something dropped to 4.2, by the way, having looked at a couple of plans, I may just automatically go to that irrespective of who it is. But James McAtee at 4.4 would be a consideration for me. Foden is the only real City player that I'm under consideration of investing in this week.
Yeah, agreed.
And if
Uh,
Haaland is back, it's Alvarez that will go most likely for me, I think.
Wolves 3, Everton nil. And comprehensive as well. It might not be reflected in the XG in terms of a 1.99 and 3 goals. But from even what our friend Bradley Parker was putting on social media and stuff, dominant.
That's performance of the weekend for me. Because you know what I've been saying about Everton, and I'm going to interject you before you even ask and say, no, there's no chance Everton will get relegated.
Don't say stuff like that, man.
I'm sorry. There's something mysterious happens that they just can't. And B, I'm sorry, they're still about the 11th or 12th best team in this league at the moment. And
Look,
Wolves
I always have to
might be
say,
better than
had they
them.
not had the 10-point deduction, they would be sitting in 12th right now. So sure, if they do the same in the second half of the season, they won't go down. But psychologically, I know from being down there, when you're just one victory or 1 point or just one place above the relegation zone, it can play on your mind. But look, Sean Dyche is experienced and he's been around the block. So he
Everton's
and
next two home games are Aston Villa and Tottenham. Don't be surprised if they beat both of them.
okay.
They'll be absolutely, as long as they keep the spine of the team fit. Like if they lose Pickford, problem. Lose Tarkovsky, Branthwaite, problem. And I think they've been impacted, obviously, by Abdullah Doucouré's absence recently as well, in terms of his box to box and his ability to link up with whoever's playing up the top. I think there's been a little bit of a miss from us recently. And I think Sean Dyche will probably regret his selection for this game because he picked the back three again. And when we spoke to Sean Norton, our Everton correspondent, after they won at Burnley and before they came to Tottenham, the key theme seemed to be on the playing of the back three was that because Mykolenko was unavailable. Now, Mykolenko was still available and he decided to do it. And I think, honestly, on reflection, it's probably because there was enough worry about Wolves and the offensive movement that they have and the way that their wing backs, particularly Ray and Aït-Nouri, play. But I think if he could go back and have that moment again, Sean Dyche, he would have played a back four. And I think it's not to say the result would have been different, but I think Everton probably would have performed better. Everton obviously didn't have a good day, but this is way more about how good Wolves were. And they were missing probably their best player this season as well, to caveat in Mario Lemina, obviously, unfortunately, sadly, lost his father and obviously went back to France prior to the game. When he
And
comes back,
Neto, obviously, he's not available as well. I
yeah,
wouldn't put him as their best player, but he's definitely
no,
getting the team ahead of
Lamina,
Sarabia.
I know people be going Huang and Cunha and all that. Listen, Mario Lamina, I'm fairly certain most Wolves fans would say has probably been their best player this season. Neto, of course, has been a miss, and he's going to have to step up now because Huang goes
Goes
away.
away. AFCON.
And Huang very
Asia, sorry.
recently, you might remember when Neto got injured, I was really concerned that Huang would end up on the right.
Mm.
And I think that's what did happen for a few games. And them being better recently in terms of those brilliant results over Christmas, he has played as a central striker, with
Mm.
Cunha being a little bit more withdrawn to the left very recently. So it might be that Cunha goes back there. So Cunha might even be a better option again for the next few. Some of the fixtures are tough. I mean, you look at their next four away games for Wolves, it's Brighton, Chelsea, Tottenham, Newcastle. But guess what? The home games up to the quarter-final weekend of the FA Cup, United, Brentford, Sheff United, Fulham, Bournemouth, they look really strong at home. But you remember when you look at Wolves' home record this year as well, is they played the majority of the really good teams already at home, right? They beat City, they lost to Liverpool, they beat Tottenham, they nearly beat Villa, they drew with Newcastle. They beat Chelsea. It's only Arsenal, Man United of the expected sort of top seven. Um, sorry, I left you out of that. But West Ham, for example, be one of the toughest home. Brighton have already been there. West Ham be one of the toughest home games Wolves have got left.
Mm.
So I'd bear that in mind. Their home record is good, and they've played a lot of top teams. So that's going to become a bit of a fortress for them now. And I think Cunha is another one that could be considered. Neto would be a bit too punty. I think we would have liked to seen some minutes in him. Otherwise, he certainly could have been considered for forthcoming games. Maybe look, he'll get good minutes at Brentford in the FA Cup on Friday. That may help. I think Aït-Nouri leaving to AFCON is a problem.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised more than Huang if his absence means that results suffer in the next few. I spoke at the weekend about on was it Friday's pod we did Suj about him being the one player that gives them the balance to be able to
Yep.
move to back
Yep.
four, back three with and without possession. They will
Yep.
not be able to do it as good without him.
No.
So I wouldn't be surprised if their results suffer a little bit, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they end this season with one of the best home records in this league, actually.
Mm.
But I think it's probably because of the absences to the international competitions, probably a non-invest at the moment. And Everton feels the same because of the result. But Evertonians, it's just they've lost to Tottenham. They were really unlucky. They lost to City. They were winning, and they got well beat at Wolves. The only bad performance in there is the Wolves one, and Wolves were exception.
Let's talk about the game of the weekend. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United, sorry, 1. Oh, this is game of the weekend. We're recording a podcast on Thursday for our patrons about Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and the takeover. I feel like we've done a podcast before about the finances of Manchester United and why it's all gone Pete Tong and the takeover. You've recorded with Gary Robinson about the state of Manchester United. I feel like every Clash of the Correspondence that he's on also is
And one of our
basically a
patrons, Chris Church,
state.
was a good
Yeah, you
listen
did
as
as
well.
well. The point being, we've done loads of content. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to just ripping into them because
It's meant to be a financial conversation, but you want to
no, but
rip into them.
no, it's a financial conversation, right? The
Okay,
decisions they're making around recruitment and the way that they're running the business side of the club has an impact on what
but
happens on
maybe
the
that'll change
pitch.
now, right?
Maybe we'll find out. Sign up to patreon.com/planet FPL and have a listen on Thursday if you want to. Plug. But like 2 games now with Nuno. They were attacking in the previous game. They've attacked again and they've gone and got a result at the City ground. I think they're probably feeling quite positive, Nottingham Forest, now after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I should say
Listen,
they lost the first game.
no, but they won it. Yeah, but with 10 men against Bournemouth,
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
yeah. I
informed
know.
teams in the league, then very nearly got something. Solanke got the winner right at the end, and they won at Newcastle.
Mm. They're
So
doing
that's a
all right.
brilliant start. When we talk about manager bounces, this is a perfect case of it, isn't it? It is manager bounce. Listen, they could have lost this, right? Was it Ericsson's shot from the edge of the box that
Mm.
Turner saves and Forest literally score on the counter attack?
But
United
Turner
have
gave away the goal. for Rashford. So,
Yeah,
you know,
can I just say on that though? I'm getting really, really sick and tired of people saying about goalkeepers shouldn't do that. Right? I'm absolutely certain Matt Turner does not want to play that pass.
mm,
That's how he's told to play. I'm pretty sure Matt Turner wants to put his foot through it and just lump it down the pitch. You know, when people said about Arsenal and they said, oh, well, why you got Raya to go with Ramsdale? Listen, if they hadn't got Raya and they've got Ramsdale got injured and had to play this guy in goal, they'd have had no chance of winning the league. He just looks like he's got a mistake in him. He goes from like the brilliant to, oh my God, what have you just done in moments? And I would not want him as my FPL goalkeeper, but I guess he's going to stay in the team at the moment. Forest is worth saying as well. I think are also coming into a more difficult spell of fixtures, which is why it's really important they got these two results. Otherwise, you'd have been going, uh-oh, in trouble. That game at Brentford is huge. I think Morgan Gibbs-White, who I've obviously laughed a lot at Clayton because he's had him so long. I don't know if he ever got rid or he didn't, but now finally he's playing in his position and he's not the worst get at sort of 5.7. I think their fixtures looking ahead for the future weeks are not good enough to make me want to consider to go there. But I don't think he's the worst one if you're looking for someone at that value.
he's
Certainly
on his
talisman.
bench. 7 points on his bench for Clates.
Did he bench him?
Mm.
I suppose he played his treble Arsenal defence, didn't he?
No, he
No?
played double. He benched Saliba and played Gabriel and Raya, which actually worked out okay because Raya and Gabriel got 1 point each. Saliba got zero. So,
Oh, okay.
he picked the right two out of the three this time round.
Well done, Clates.
We'll get to that in a minute, James.
Happy New Year. Probably a better investment in Forest at the moment now, though, for even cheaper. Again, if you want to look for eighth attacker, Anthony Langer at
Yeah.
5.0.
I told you when we played against them, he's all right. He's involved in everything. He's a live wire,
How
man.
many
I
attacking
think he's
returns
a
he
good
got,
player.
Such?
You're putting me on the spot there.
I
I'll
feel
pull
like he's
that
up to
stat
nearly
up.
double figures, maybe, Elanga, for
It
attacking
wouldn't
returns.
surprise me. And the problem with Manchester United is obviously being an ex-Man United player, everyone then pulls out his stats versus the likes of Anthony and whoever else they've got there, which I don't think necessarily is always the fairest thing to do. But he has 10, yes,
10.
4 goals, 6 assists,
How many more than Anthony is that?
probably 10.
But he's got one
Excuse
attacking
me.
return in the calendar year, hasn't he? Which I think, ironically, was at Nottingham Forest in April. Um,
It is
he,
10. He's got no returns this year. I didn't realize that was actually the case, James. I didn't realize Anthony hadn't got a goal or an assist all season.
No, I mean, we're last Manchester United fans. Who would you rather have right now in your team? I don't mean FPL, in your team. Would you rather have Elanga or would
No,
you rather have
Elanga
Anthony?
all day long.
You probably would.
Yeah, and maybe even have him over Garnacho, to be honest with you.
Yeah, debatable. I mean, there's really good talent there with Garnacho. At 4.8 is still a consideration for me. Not as strong as he was last week, which I'll come back onto. Yeah, I mean, United fans, this was a bit of a turning point, I think, for a few United fans with Anthony. One of the questions I often get with Anthony is why does he escape the criticism from like the bashing in terms of how much United paid for him? And I think from our
He
perspective,
doesn't choose his price.
well, I
I
think
always feel that with
no,
players, they don't choose their transfer fee.
no, it didn't. And again, it's probably poor recruitment. But I think one of the reasons he's escaped from our content, Suj, is because he has been so ineffective that we never even talk about him in terms of fantasy or anything. So
I feel like he's a forfeit. Like, if you and me had a bet and the bet was you could put any player in my fantasy team, he'd be the go-to to just screw up your team or something.
um I imagine
Oh,
against Tottenham, obviously,
awful.
look, Rasmus Højlund missed out through illness. I presume they'll go to the same front three against Tottenham in game week 21 that they played against Villa. And it will have some fun. I spoke about that last week. I don't feel as positive about them doing a number on us as I did last week because I've got a midfield player back in Rodrigo Bentancur, which I'll speak about in a bit. But I think the biggest one, even more than Anthony, that really annoyed the United's community was the withdrawal of Kobe Mino at half time, who is being played in this position. I've said this pretty much all through this season that I think Ten Hag's end goal has been to try and get United into a 4-1-4-1. And that's playing two very advanced eights and just playing a one. And I think the reason quite a lot that he couldn't do it this season was he'd realised that Casemiro couldn't pull side to side in the way that he wanted anymore and needed help all of a sudden. And Casemiro was brilliant for 6 months last year, but he couldn't then play as a single pivot anymore. Mino admittedly missed the first 3, 4 months of the season. He's a young boy. He's now getting trusted in that role. Why he then took him out of that role, I have no idea, because it just opened United up in terms of on turnover and counter attacks to be obliterated. Because Ericsson cannot run backwards. To be honest, he's always been like that. It's not a lack of effort or anything like that. He just can't. He's a forward thinking player. He's not trained in his brain on to think, oh, I need to get alongside a pivot without possession. If you ask him to sit there, it's fine. But when he's gone higher and then there's a turnover, they are absolutely battered on the counter attack. United Tottenham in game week 21 could be anything from like 5-0 either way to 3-3. But I'll tell you what it won't be. Have a guess, Suj.
0-0.
Won't be 0-0. That's absolute certainty. Even without Son, it won't be 0-0. No chance. Um, so I think Mino's withdrawal and putting Scott McTominay on the pitch was, I felt like it was a bit of a breaker for a number of United fans to go enough.
Mm.
And I think they've got Wigan away in the Cup Monday night. It's a big game for them. It's the sort of one you, oh God, pushing to the edge. But if my team rocks up there and outplays them and beats them in game week 21, I think that might be it. Because I think then to have Angie's style come and then show you what a philosophy can look like that then outplays their awful structure. And they can still beat us, by the way. I spoke about this last week because I think they'll do real damage to us on turnover as well. It'll be whichever team counter attacks better will win the game. But if we go there and beat them well, say we go there and we win 3-0 or something like that, then yeah, I think that'll be the end of him. I think they'll change now. And now that the takeover's gone through, I think we're possibly moving closer to that moment. I don't see, and I'm not saying it's the right thing for United to do because the problems in the background are well documented, but I don't think they'll recover this. They go from one good result to one bad result all the time. They've lost as many league games this season as they lost in 22-23. So for them, top four now looks really, really tough. And was it 20 losses in the calendar year or
It
something
was more.
such?
It's more now. I think 20, 21 now,
You
something
Manchester
like
United
that.
they
Yeah.
can't,
No, you
and
can't.
and this has been bad, really. I think probably since the Liverpool game, the 7-0, since sort of the Carabao Cup final. I wouldn't say they scraped to top four, but there was signs then that there was a few bad results beginning to happen. Think of the 4-0 at Brighton and stuff.
Mm. Let's talk about the Sunday game show. Starting with Fulham 2, Arsenal 1. Um, and yeah, a fully deserved win for Fulham. You can't say anything other than that. You talk about this single pivot. Like if you'd have said to me at the start of the season, who's the one holding midfielder that you're happy to have in a single pivot, I'd have thought Declan Rice, side to side, he'll protect the back four. Yet the last two games where he's kind of sort of had to play that, well, Havertz and Odegaard are the other two midfielders in this game, and it was Trossard and Odegaard against West Ham. I haven't seen him look so anonymous and lost in a game of football. And understand, I've seen a lot of that guy, right? For ages. Like Willian and Robinson on the left and even on the right with Decordova Reed and then Jimenez's movement. Arsenal defensively look rubbish. It's just consistently getting pulled out of shape where the centre backs are having to help the fullbacks and then they're all over the place and the gaps could be found. I thought the way that Fulham were able to get into the fullback positions and put pressure on that and pull Arsenal out of shape and create chances was exactly what they needed to do. And Arsenal, on the other hand, end up it was similar to a West Ham game. Like you can control the possession as much as you want and you can try and create your chances, but they weren't creating chances that you're like, okay, you guys have peppered Fulham's goal. This was fully deserved for Fulham. Fully deserved for Fulham.
You watched the game? Oh, I didn't. So
Yeah,
I've only
fully
picked up
deserved.
the bits of the
I
highlights.
was. We sat before the game, and I was at my brother-in-law's place, and I was like, I'm torn here. Like, I want to watch Tottenham Bournemouth because I want to watch Tottenham lose because I think they're going to lose, and I quite enjoy watching you lose. But James is at the game, so I've got to watch Arsenal really because that's
Oh,
what they want to do for the pod. Sod it, we'll watch Arsenal. I just discovered I actually quite enjoy watching Arsenal lose too, mate. To be honest with you,
I think you
but
and the majority of the rest of the country, to be honest.
credit to Fulham. They deserve to win. I think the biggest learning from this was that I found out that my wife quite fancies Bobby Decordova-Reid.
Okay, that's
Post match
interesting.
interview. Oh, he's got nice eyes. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to think about getting some coloured contact lenses or something. Yeah, they fully deserved it. It's just played better all around. And for what Calvin Basti lacks, as a footballing centre half. He's physical and he was up for it and he was really good. Like he gave whoever was in front of him, including Jesus, sorry, and Ketcher, a tough time. Like he was physical. He made the blocks, made the tackles in your face. I thought Calvin Bassey had a really good game
It's
as
his
well
tackle
because
that led to the equaliser, wasn't it, as well?
yeah, he was just aggressive and in your face and really sometimes that can be dangerous, right? Because you overcommit and then they get in behind you and you're screwed. But I thought, yeah, it was a good result for Fulham. Really good to come back out of what had happened. And no surprise, Willian and Raul Jimenez are back in the team. And
That's what I said. Is a
they're done
common
all right.
denominator is those two
The
players.
way Willian can hold the ball up and just have that patience and be creative, very good football player. So, yeah, Arsenal, whatever, they'll snap out of it. They'll still create chances. They still got talent on the pitch, but not quite right. And I don't think leaving Declan Rice in there, like when he was at West Ham, double pivot. When he plays for England, Southgate always puts him as a double pivot. In certain games like this, it doesn't suit him.
Disagree with that England comment, by the way.
But Southgate does play him alongside Calvin Phillips sometimes.
Yeah, it's moving
It
parts.
does. But it's all, again, down to the opposition, right? Because there's certain games where I'd say playing Declan Rice as a double pivot is a single pivot. It's fine when you're going to have 70, 65, 70% of the ball. But this was 50-50. This was even in terms of possession. And they exploited that for them pretty well.
So we can agree on Fulham that actually to bin the results from those two 5-0 games, bin the results between them and this one, bin them because Jimenez and William weren't available.
Yeah, I don't think life is that simple. I wouldn't go. I'm not educated enough to be able to say yes. You can just put a line through it, but that's a very big
But
coincidence.
then, yeah, no, but this is a relevance for people like me, and it won't be the only one going, oh, should I captain Palmer in 21? Like, what Fulham are we going to get at Chelsea?
I wouldn't be thinking about captaining Palmer at all. If Fulham play like they did against Arsenal, I wouldn't be thinking about captaining a Chelsea player, regardless of if
The
it's a
one
Stamford
definite about
Bridge.
Fulham as well, and I mentioned about the Wednesday night and then the 12:30 Saturday kickoff, which is bad for them, but there'll be no lack of motivation at Chelsea, right? It's their game.
It's a derby, yeah.
It's their big game. By the way, next Monday's clash of correspondence is Chelsea. Be next Monday, by the way. Chelsea versus Fulham with Gary Mantle and Dara Curran.
Good, good. Um,
I
go on.
cut the stats on this because I think these are interesting. On Jimenez, who has to be an option at 5.2, right? If people are looking for that enabling
Yeah,
forward, he's got to be.
100%.
He scored 4 in
100%.
4 when he's got 4 in his previous 50, basically. It's the first time in 26 Premier League games that Fulham have come from behind to win. It's the first time in 48 Premier League games, no, not quite 49 Arsenal fans, 48 Premier League games that Arsenal scored first and lost. So, I mean, when I heard, because I heard some of the ground state really early, Arsenal win it, I thought, well,
Game
that early
over.
on as
Yeah,
well, that'll
six
be
minutes, and you
game
think
over, mate.
done.
They've also, interestingly, and I'm not suggesting anyone goes and starts Gay or Anderson in game week 21, but have now conceded 4 goals from corners in their last 6 Premier League games. And if I remember correctly, did they go all of last season? Maybe conceding one or maybe even none in Premier League games last season. But that was maybe one quite near the end
Mm.
to Leeds, maybe rings a
How many
bell.
shots on target did Arsenal have in the second half?
None.
None. And nor did they look or feel like they were going to. Can you ask Dara when you get him on Clash of the Correspondents? You
Yeah.
may know this, but I'm not 100% sure. When did Raul Jimenez change his headband from the full one to the one that's just got a cushioning on the side of his head? Because I'd be interested to know if that's change in
Helped?
form.
Could be.
Because people talk about these weird things having an impact, but maybe it seems much more less intrusive on his head now. If it's like an eye
Maybe.
patch that's just on the
Did
side,
you
maybe
see
that's helped
Salah's
him.
interview last night
No,
after the game?
no.
Because there was ribbon back, he changed his boots at half time.
Oh,
So it was like, well, I took a penalty with these ones and they were new boots and well, that didn't work. I'll get rid of them. I'll just put a different one on. And he actually said, he admitted it. He was like, oh, it's not a big deal. But then he said afterwards, he said, I didn't want anything in my head that could be something that I'd go, oh, that's why.
mm.
It's basically saying it was psychological, right? And he
Yeah,
was
and it
going,
can have an impact.
I'm gonna change my boots. Now, if that's for him going, oh, the boots might make a difference, and this guy's got something he's got to wear on his head, is
Mm.
intrusive to him, exactly like what you're saying during a game. Yeah, maybe. Listen, none of us have been through that to know
No.
what the impact is or
Yeah.
how he's felt or whatever. But what I can say is, from what I saw of the highlights, and by the way, can we have more Nedum analysis as well? He's fantastic, and he has been every time I've seen him. Um, he's a real option for Fulham. He's become key for them. So when we looked at it in the past and went, I wonder if Muniz will be an option at 4.4 or whatever. Now, Jimenez is main man now, and unbelievably, Mitrovic got turned by Silva from someone and we went, it's going to be a pain in the ass for FPL, etc., to someone we could rely on. And it might just be happening with Jimenez now as well, where I wouldn't be surprised if we got into a state where if he keeps carrying on, he'll just sit in our team as our third forward as this season goes on. Because if he can rediscover what he was at Wolves, 5.2 is a madness.
Agreed. Should we talk about Tottenham Bournemouth? Again,
Are
we're
you
talking about.
are
Go
you
on.
considering any Arsenal players for your Salah son?
I don't own any Arsenal attacking talent, so I'd be mad not to think about Saka or Odegaard.
How did he play?
Who?
Saka.
He's being flogged, James. It's like give it to Saka and let him fix everything. Kind of, he was involved, but nothing with any particular end product. It feels like he's the get out of jail card is Saka all the time. And I'm look, he could have easily scuffed and missed the goal that he actually did put away because it wasn't the cleanest of strikes. I'd be stupid based on their quality to ignore them, but based on form, and I've watched the last two games, they don't make me want to buy them at all. I'd go to Foden over any of them all day long, is what I would say.
I feel at the moment, and I think this is probably the sensible play, and this is how most people feel. I feel I can't sell Saka.
You can't. The problem is he's still talisman.
Well, and I might even captain him
Mm,
in 21 just on virtue of, to me, it's the best matchup, Arsenal and Crystal Palace. But I don't have major confidence in that. And that's despite the fact, I'm sure it was Palace Arsenal played in game week 29 last year in the blank, and I captained Saka then. Didn't he get 18 points or something?
possibly.
Madness. But don't feel like that's going to happen much at the moment. What I would say though is if for anyone who watched Monday Night Football last night, there was a big analysis of Arsenal's attacking numbers and conversion and shot percentages individually and stuff as well. That's going to be a big narrative over the next couple of weeks where I bet there's a few of those Arsenal guys will be quite intent on proving a point in some forthcoming games. If you don't have Saka, unbelievably, if you're selling Salah or Son, that's not a given,
Mm.
but it's probably a sensible purchase.
We'll talk about another replacement now in Richarlison, who should also have his hat thrown into the ring, James. We're talking about Fickle. So obviously I didn't watch your game. And halfway through the first half on Twitter, if I'm followed by Twitter, I'm like, all right, Solanke's going to be taken off the pitch. And the tweets were like, not just, oh, he's got a knock. It's like, don't watch the replay. He's had a horrific injury
I've
stuff.
not seen it, but he was down for a long time.
And then I've got SofaScore and I'm like, where's the sub? 5 minutes later, is he still down? Where's the sub?
He's
10
missed
minutes
another big
later,
chance.
where's the sub? And he never got taken off in the end. So again, it's like be careful what information, where you go to for your information, because clearly none of those people had medical degrees.
I mean, he probably spent combined in the first half probably 3 or 4 minutes down, I'd say, if if
Yeah.
if not longer.
Ouch.
So yeah, he did, and it was quite near me, the one where Udogi stepped across him, and I think Udogi Solanke kind of tried to block tackle him, and his leg did look like it. At the time, I thought, oh yeah, he's going off. I thought that in the ground, so to be fair, I thought he's going
Mm.
off, and I hadn't had the benefit of seeing the replay or anything.
Got away with one
Um,
again?
who my team?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is it genuinely? Is it a genuine question? I don't know. If I
yeah,
look
I
at
think
24 shots to 12,
yeah, but Bournemouth deserves something from the game. It
and
wasn't
even when
quite
you
like
when you're like 1-0 up or 2-0 up, I'm like, don't worry, Spurs will tire in the second half. Bournemouth can come back. But I don't know. You tell me.
yeah, it wasn't quite like I think Everton deserved to beat us a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it was quite that stage because actually, I mean, we ended up having a number of
You
really good
scored three
chances
goals there, right?
ourselves. I mean, well, even look at like Hill's header on the line that hits the bar. Son has a very similar opportunity before he scores the second goal, tries to come back inside, and I don't know why he does. There was other few chances that we'd had on, to be honest, on the counter quite a lot in the second half. My goodness, the last 15, 20 minutes of the first half, we couldn't get out of half, mate.
Mm.
Which coincided with, guess what, Serge?
Sarr going
Another
off.
injury, Pat Sark going off injured, who is still going to go to AFCON and presumably has a chance maybe playing in
I
the
think
knockout stage or
Spurs'
something.
injuries are your own fault.
They might be. Yeah, no,
I was
I
thinking
don't,
about
I
this
don't
because
resent
even
that comment.
Newcastle have had a lot of injuries this season. And I'm thinking, well, if you play a high intense game and the players are not conditioned for it, what's going to happen, right? I was trying to think of like a boxing analogy. Like if you go to like Man City are the classic, they'll jab away, they'll keep their distance. They're never going to get hurt because they'll just jab, jab, jab at a nice distance. West Ham, we're like the boxer that just puts your gloves up and doesn't let anybody hit you. You guys swing. And when you're going to swing and go in swinging, you're going to get caught the other way. And if you're not conditioned to be fit enough to deal with this kind of intense end to end basketball style football, that might be the cause of the injuries, right?
Yeah, no,
Potentially, where it's just too intense and they
I don't
haven't got
disagree with that.
themselves.
But
We went for a period a few years ago where we just kept getting injured players, and it was like, is it the medical staff? Is it the training ground shit? What's the cause of it? Because eventually, it can't just be bad luck. And I actually think, thinking about it from Spurs' point of view, your game is so intense, the players are under so much intense pressure in the games, it's fatigue and stuff like that. It might be causing this issue now with so many injuries.
no, I don't disagree with that actually.
Mm,
But I don't want Tottenham to change their style either. I mean, Ange's even
no,
said that recently. He said like, we know we've asked the players to do a lot, and we'll keep asking them.
yeah,
Emphasized by the fact, I mean, Saul was going to AFCON anyway, so we knew it was going to be a miss for forthcoming games. So it doesn't change too much. Bentancur was unbelievable news. His missus had put on Instagram either on Friday night or early on Saturday. She'd put like L30 is back or something. Obviously, that's his number. And a few people got excited about it, and most of it, well, maybe he's back in training because the target had always been February, was what we were
mm,
told. February. And then suddenly it was like half hour before the teams come out, it was like he's in the ground, he's walking around the pitch with the players, he's in the squad. I was like, oh wow, what a boost to have him back for Manchester United in 2 weeks. That's what I thought. You know, if you can get 20 minutes out of him today, great. When I saw the team, but honestly, my jaw dropped that he was in the team. So
yeah,
I couldn't believe it. And 5 minutes into the game, it became apparent that it was a real problem. And it's difficult, right? Because Benson Core, and to go back to your, like, are we causing our own problems? Maybe, yeah, because really, he shouldn't have played.
right.
I wouldn't have even said he was short of fitness. I would say he was still injured.
Wow.
I
Okay, because
spent
I
a
did
lot.
see he went off for about
Uh,
65 minutes or something. 60
yeah, I
minutes
mean,
was it?
he was never going to get through more than that. But I spent a lot of the game watching him closely.
No doubt.
4 minutes into the game, Such, he was standing there with his hands on his hips, like, I mean, I'm in trouble here. I think he's gone banging. I need, let me
Out
help
of
you, let me
puff,
help you.
out of energy, or
Well, yeah,
struggling
I
with the
mean,
knock,
so yeah,
or
part
both?
fitness, but even like when the game stopped and he was walking around, it didn't look like he was walking normally to me.
Right.
So I don't know if they've done whatever they needed to get him ready for the game, and knowing that they couldn't get much out of him. What I would say is, and me and Dad was having this discussion, it is a shame, but unfortunately, yeah, 50% Rodrigo Bentancur is still better than 100% Pierre-Emile Højbjerg on Oliver Skip, and that's the decision he decided to make. But the problem was, obviously, having Rod on the ball was fine, but he couldn't do recovery runs or anything. So when Bournemouth broke on us, we were in massive trouble. I personally would have taken him off half hour into the game because I'd have been like, right, do you know what? You've helped us get in front here. We were getting battered at the end of the first half. How they never scored? Like, if you're a Solanke owner and you started him this week, let me tell you, we're just unlucky. Simple as that. You should have got a return in the game. And actually, some of his own finishing let him down a little bit, which is unusual for him because he is a good finisher. When Højbjerg came on, it was better for us. And it suits Højbjerg to come on into that scenario where we're already winning the game. And he can just sit there and be a little bit more of a, you know what I mean? It's not as much pressure on him with his passing because his passing is not good enough. It's the same for Skip. But as we already had the lead, it suited a little bit better. The second goal was important. It was crucial. Brilliant from Lo Celso to release Sonny. Lo Celso will play again against Manchester United. That's almost definite. Beyond that, Madders might be back maybe for game week 22. But considering we thought Bentancur wasn't going to be back to about game week 24 and he's just rocked up, like who knows? Maybe Madders will be back in a couple of weeks. And he's obviously prepared to throw someone straight in the team, even if they haven't trained for a month. So he might do the same with even Mickey van der Ven. So it's these little things that make me not as confident that Manchester United will just give us a slap in in game week 21, as I said. And Bentancur back means we can pass through their lines much, much better. I imagine in Son's absence, Johnson will go to the left. Kulusevski will be back from suspension. Richarlison will play up front. Richarlison is definitely the one to go and get. The only player who scored more goals than Dominic Solanke in December in the Premier League, Suj?
Richarlison.
Unbelievably, that is the answer. So you've got, I think despite what we said about Manchester United, buying a player going to Manchester United away doesn't feel right. But we've seen him score a couple of carbon copy goals now. Newcastle at home, it's a pullback. The goals very recently against Everton and obviously at the weekend against Bournemouth. There are balls across the front. Great cross by Brennan Johnson, by the way. Thank you. Brilliant movement. Great cross. I need you to be a lot stronger, boy. Otherwise, I'm going to keep calling you wank, right? But Richarlison's definitely the one to go and get. It might be that Kulusevski plays with Lo Celso in midfield against Manchester United and Brian Hill might start. Who knows? Maybe Maddison will suddenly rock up. Tottenham are also close to agreeing a deal for Rado Dragusin from Genoa, who's a centre-back, can play either side. If they get him, he'll go straight in the team.
Okay.
So there's these little things that make me feel a little bit better about the prospect of going to Manchester United than I did a couple of weeks ago. Richarlison is right under consideration for me. The biggest reason for me not to buy him is that I think Tottenham will blank in game week 26. And I'm going to be carrying Liverpool and Chelsea players. So I might be buying two players this week who I think are going to blank in 26 in Palmer and Richarlison. And I'm not sure if I want to do that.
Understood.
So otherwise, I think, yeah, it would be Richie for me. I'd go. He's frustrating, but he looks at the moment like if you give him the service, he'll finish. And by the way, I thought he played really well. In that period where he was under big pressure, it's almost like the uglier the game, the better he'll play when there's less on him. How's your link play and all that? Like if you've got to fight for it, I think Everton fans have said this in the past. Almost the bigger
Yeah.
games when he can run the channels and he works hard are beneficial for them. Just for Bournemouth, a little note on them going into 21, which is important. Obviously, Marcus Senesi got his fifth yellow card, and because they obviously missed the Luton game, he will be suspended for the game against Liverpool, which is a bro. They were also really unfortunate, I think, to lose Dango Utara, who played left back and played Johnson pretty well in the first half, actually. He's obviously going to go to AFCON as well. They were
Last
unlucky.
night,
They were
mate.
unlucky, Bournemouth. Good team. Good
Yeah.
team.
Last night, Liverpool. When we get to the end of the season, there was like, what was the prediction you made that you were completely wrong about? Um, I completely underestimated Liverpool this season because I didn't think their midfield was going to be anywhere near as strong as it needed to be because they didn't really get anyone that they needed to, right? I mean, I didn't know how good Szoboszlai was or
I
wasn't.
didn't think he played well last night, by the way. He gave the ball away a
McAllister obviously came
lot
off
in the first
the
half.
bench, but again, he's going from Brighton to Liverpool. It wasn't like headline signing in any way. And even Wataru Endo felt like filling the gap. Like, when you get to the last weekend before Christmas, and you're like, shit, I ain't got nothing. What's on the shelf that I can just get?
I get a
Honest,
Wataru Endo.
but but
You should have got a poster of Bobby Decordova Reed, mate.
maybe I will. Um, I wonder if he's on Cameo. You know that thing where you can order like private messages.
I just think it never occurred to
Valentine's
me.
Day.
Do you know what? Bobby Decordova Reed, shout out. Like, it never occurred to me. It's certainly not ugly, but never occurred to me as like, oh, that's the
It's
handsome
his
man that I
eyes.
want in
I
my
don't
life.
think
Is
she
it?
said he was good. She just liked his. He's got like greeny hazel colored eyes that look quite
Okay.
quite nice. 7.11 xg, like 34 shots, domination. The end result makes it look a little bit harder than it was, but from a performance point of view, when Liverpool are intense, you ain't keeping up with them. And this is where I think now, in terms of a title race, right? Say we get to the last day of the season, Arsenal got a win at home, Liverpool got a win at home. I trust Liverpool a little bit more, and I don't think I would have said that at the start of the season. And I'm happy to admit that I was wrong.
I think the next three games are massive for Liverpool.
Mm,
Um, if
Salahless.
if they win them, which includes obviously going to Arsenal, and I'm talking about the league game, not the FA Cup game here for the moment. So they go to Arsenal in game at 23. If they win that, they'll probably finish Arsenal off. And then the gap from just Liverpool to Arsenal will probably be big enough where
7 points then.
yeah,
Mm,
be a lot for Arsenal to make up. Then Liverpool have good fixtures, and then they've got the likes of Mo Salah coming back. It's not just Salah going though; it's Endo as well, actually,
mm.
because I've not been hugely impressed with him, but he does sit there.
Yep.
McAllister's more of a footballer, isn't he? You
Yep.
know, McAllister might be under real pressure away to Arsenal, for example. And the thing with Mo is, like, I think it's important that Jota's back fit, Diaz is fit. I'm really surprised took Diaz off last night. I thought it was great.
Maybe
But
yellow
then
card influenced it a little bit. Didn't want to leave him on two yellows, on a yellow or
maybe, I
something.
mean, it's probably more congestion of having played a lot of football recently, and he's obviously going to have to play a lot of football that they've decided to look after him a little bit. I thought it was really good, Luis Diaz. Um, with Salah, though, he's a guarantee, isn't he?
Of
What I mean,
of
what
what?
what I
What do you
mean by
mean?
that is we could go and buy any of these Liverpool attackers, Nunes, Gakpo, Jota, who I think is really interesting, Diaz, over this next period for FPL, and they could start all of the next four and might not score at all.
Hmm.
Salah's a guarantee, isn't he? That's why people love him, call him the king, etc. He's inevitable. You know what I always say when I own him and I don't find him enjoyable. Even when he missed the penalty last night, I was enjoying it actually. I thought he's going to come for him inevitably, maybe because the game was so one-sided. But he's going to be a big miss. And their solution is what? Play Jota that side, maybe? It's not the
Yep.
same, is it? It can't be. I think in terms of taking Diaz off, he's the one that's the real ball carrier. So they might feel like they need that the most over forthcoming weeks. I think Jota's the one I'd want to punt.
Me too.
But I easily could feel like I could get to Bournemouth away and he might not start. I also feel, by the way,
But he'll come off the bench and still get you returns, even if he is
I,
falling
I,
over his
I
own shoelaces or
I
whatever
wouldn't
that
be
dive
shocked.
was.
That's a challenging game. I'm not saying they will. I wouldn't be shocked if they got beat at Bournemouth.
Okay.
They're in great form. They were really unlucky against my team. You're taking a couple of key components out for Liverpool at the moment, I think.
With Salah, I mean, you're talking about him like 151 goals. So he crossed the 150 Premier League goals for the same club, only four other players. And you know the four other players, like that's a fucking elite group of strikers. Aguero, Kane, Wayne Rooney, Thierry Henry, and then Mo Salah. That's as good as
But
it
yeah,
gets
that's
for
unfortunately
to,
that's jobless Wayne Rooney this morning, sacked by
oh, did
Birmingham
he?
City,
Well, it
sacked
doesn't
this
matter.
morning.
Like
Yeah,
I will always remember Wayne Rooney the player more than I'll remember Wayne Rooney the manager. But that's an elite bunch of strikers.
will you remember John Eustace, the player?
Yeah, I probably will.
Yeah, who did he play for?
Birmingham.
Yeah, some sort of a wanker, aren't you? Yeah, tough three games for Liverpool. These Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away are not good three games to be doing without Salah,
Yeah.
honestly. But if they get through it well, I think if Liverpool come out those three games with 7 points even, with some really good fixtures afterwards, 24 to 27 looks really attractive. Obviously, the 26th game could go, but could also get brought forward to 25 against Luton.
I was
Then
thinking
they're
of the
in.
other John Eustace. You're thinking of the one that played for Derby and Watford and then was at Hereford before when he was at Stoke. That was after he was at Coventry and had some loan spells at
Yeah.
Dundee and Middlesbrough. I was thinking of the other John Eustace, mate.
And I
Sorry.
guarantee you 100%, such as reading that off of Wikipedia.
It is indeed.
You didn't even mention Coventry. That's where I
No,
remember
I
him.
said Coventry just
Oh,
now.
did you?
That's where
Oh,
he
okay.
started. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Coventry is where I
Because
remember
that's
him.
where he was when he went on loan, mate, to Dundee and Middlesbrough.
Oh, of course. Sorry.
Oh dear.
Right.
Liverpool are on fire right now, though, mate.
Yeah, they are. I think, let's be honest here. I know Newcastle fans have got a few complaints, right? Let's talk the penalty. By the way, what a pass from McAllister to
Yeah,
Jota, which got
yeah,
completely missed
yeah,
in the
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Incredible pass. I couldn't help but thinking, I don't know why he's gone down because he's going to score, isn't he? That's the
Mm.
weird. That's the weird bit about it. He's going to score, Jota. When he went round the keeper, I said, "Great goal." Literally came out my mouth. Great goal. And he's on the floor. It must be. That was my reaction. I think it must have been Anthony Taylor's. It must be a penalty because I don't know why he's going to score. I
Yeah,
don't know why he'd go down. And there is definitely contact. And once you saw the review on the TV, the replay, you knew it wasn't going to get overturned because the Bravka's
it's
elbow
contact.
did clip him.
It's one of them where contact doesn't. You, you can't overturn it. You understand why VAR given it. It's just stupid.
That's and there was also, but more the point was at 1-1 in the same move that led to Liverpool's goal. Sean Longstaff absolutely could have had a penalty. Why he didn't appeal was bizarre. It was the same thing. It happened. I went, well, that looked a bit, oh, but he got on his feet and he just walked away. So I thought, well, it can't be a penalty then, because he's not even appealed it. You've got to put your arms out and make everybody aware. So who knows? Maybe VAR didn't look at it. I'm sure they probably did. Um, they deemed, but maybe they deemed in that moment, well, the player hasn't complained. So maybe he himself thinks it's a coming together, which to go back to the point of, oh, how can he dive there? Listen, if Jota doesn't go down and he
Penalty
puts
doesn't
the
get
ball
given.
wide, he doesn't get it. Don't hate the player, hate the rules. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
It's
I'm in
shit.
agreement with
It's
that.
shit. Hate the rules. It did conveniently though leave Eddie Howe with a number of excuses in his interview after the game,
They were
which
battered. There's no other excuse.
they no, they were annihilated, mate.
Yeah.
That is the highest XG in a Premier League game since they've been doing records. And I thought that was going to be like 2018. Now that the XG data apparently goes back to about 2010. Highest XG in a Premier League game, over
Yeah.
7. Oh, they had 2 penalties. It'd still be over 5.5. Bloody hell. They got slapped all over the place, mate. And I think it's concerning because they've obviously had mitigating circumstances for what's been happening. The injuries and the quick turnarounds, they've had 3 days, 3 days, 3 days, etc. As I said at the start, my only real concern with Captain Salah this week was, well, Newcastle have now had 6 days to prepare properly and rest, but it looked like they'd only had 3 days rest again. Though, particularly in the midfield, I think Gomeres is knackered. I love him as a player, but he's absolutely knackered. You'd have thought that with Burn, Botman, and Share back together, and I know Trips wasn't available, that it would have been stronger physically. But physically, they just weren't up to it. In terms of like the pressing off the ball and stuff, their engagement, recovery. I'm not saying no effort. I'm not saying that at all. There's certain teams you can look at and you go, no, I'm not sure the effort's there. And I don't think it's that at all. Maybe, yeah, still knackered, but way too open. Massively. And to be honest, bar trips, and you can debate Lewis Miley as well. We're debating what Miley or Almer on and how you set up. Bar trips and obviously the goalkeeper, that's nearly them back to full strength now. And as I said, the penalty debate hides the fact that they got hammered,
Battered.
absolutely
Mm.
slaughtered. If they lose Sunderland on Saturday lunchtime, that's the game this weekend you need to watch for shits and giggles,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah. My
everyone.
brother lives in Sunderland. He's like, I'm staying indoors that day, mate.
Newcastle fans can only go to the game, by the way, if they go on a coach.
Oh, wow.
All of them. There's like 5,000-6,000 of them. They won't be able to get on the site of the stadium unless they go on a coach, apparently. These two hate each other and it's been a long time. If Newcastle lose Sunderland, Eddie Howe is going to lose some of the support. I'm not saying that he should. I'm just telling you that's what's going to happen. Their next 2 league games are Manchester City home and Aston Villa away.
We talked about it. Yeah. Difficult.
Rough.
Good,
I won't
good.
be I won't be looking at Newcastle players this week.
One more game left, which is West Ham United at home to Brighton tonight. And we'll talk about that on Tottenham tomorrow for the patrons, but also we'll cover it off at some point later in the week whenever we're chatting a bit of footy. Um, yeah, what's the schedule for the rest of the week, James? We've got some questions in on X, not a huge amount, but we've got a few good ones that I will cover off in a second. But yeah, what do we got to look forward to?
Good question. Tomorrow, Sky Fantasy Football. We're part of 2
Yes.
big Sky Fantasy podcasts as we're now in the overhaul period following tonight's game at the London Stadium. Tomorrow is going to be a heavy emphasis on fixtures. Next Wednesday's Sky Pod will be a heavy emphasis on the players and final selections. Thursday, Clash of Correspondence this week is Bournemouth versus Liverpool with Neil Grover and Dan Lord. I'll be streaming with Ask James on Friday. It's probably going to be 3 o'clock at the moment. That's a to be confirmed timing based on my wife's work schedule on that day. Our Patreon podcast this week, our Q&A today, Tottenham tomorrow, which will include a deep-rooted review of the West Ham Brighton game tonight. Thursday, as Suj alluded to earlier, Money in Football on Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And we'll be having a bit of an FA Cup preview on Friday as well. If you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. It's a new year. We'd love to have you with us. Can I cover one more piece of information that I think we've missed out of our review here that's important? It's
Oh,
from the
go on.
Nottingham Forest Manchester United game. Obviously, our Nana's going to AFCON. It's been a bit shit, but I don't know if Binder, the guy who's going to stand in for him, is any good either. So there's something to bear in mind. But more importantly for Forest, Serge Aurier, Willy Bolly, Ibrahim Sangari, Musa Niakate, Cheku Kouyaté, and Ola Aina. 6 players all going to AFCON. Something to
Oof.
bear in mind for that. They've got the worst of it.
You recorded with Clayton a couple of weeks ago, People's Poll, which was around AFCON and Asia Cup and players disappearing. So scroll through our back catalogue and you'll find that episode
Most
as
of the players we
well.
mentioned on that are going. Few that aren't is Said Ben Rama.
Hmm.
I said, even the likes of like Mitoma and Adingra from Brighton have been called up despite their injuries, and I presume those nations are thinking if we can get these guys fit for the quarterfinals, it'll be worth
Worth
it,
it.
particularly in Mitoma's case. So yeah, I do get that. Um, Thomas Partey is one that's not been called up.
But he hasn't been fit and played a lot. So
Apparently he was going to be ready for Liverpool away a couple of weeks ago.
they could do with him. Cool. Right. Let's go through some of these questions we've had it in on the internet, James. What was the worst cracker joke you heard this Christmas?
Didn't open any crackers, sorry.
You did not.
No,
What do you get if you eat Christmas crackers? What do you get if you eat Christmas decorations?
Christmas crackers.
Tinselitis. I remember that one. It was pretty bad. Tinselitis. Uh, Matt wants to know, what did you and Sunshine eat on New Year's Day?
What did what, sorry?
What did we eat on New Year's Day? I've
Uh
got a
we
very
we
random menu.
we went round to my mum and dad's. Happy birthday, mum.
Happy birthday,
Um
Mrs. L.
we crap.
Okay,
Crap, like party food and shit.
nice. Um, I was at my brother-in-law, sister-in-law's the night before, and my sister-in-law made a banging chicken biryani, like rice and chicken. It like delicious for dinner the night before. I got up in the morning, went down for breakfast. I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm gonna have another bowl of that chicken biryani, please. So I had a cup of tea and chicken biryani for breakfast on New Year's Day, and I'm not even ashamed about it. Don't care. It was
Did you
too
have
good
any
and too
cold turkey on
delicious.
Boxing Day?
Didn't have any turkey on Christmas Day, so couldn't have any cold turkey on Boxing Day, mate.
Problem my game week was they didn't have any cold turkey on Saturday either.
Uh, right. What's your favorite food part of Christmas dinner? Starters and dessert included. What's your favorite bit of it?
All of it.
The meat. It's got to be the meat bit for
Well,
me. But
yeah,
yeah,
but I've said this before. It's turkey nonsense. It
yeah,
is.
not a fan. And
Why do we pick the
Ali,
shittest meat for our celebration? Why?
last question of the show, James says we need a Suj and James bold football prediction for 2024. Could be anything from on the pitch to off it.
You got anything in mind?
I don't know about bold, um, but England lose in the semi-finals of the Euros because we always get that far and then seem to shit the bed.
Nah, it's coming home. It's coming home this
Is
time.
that your bold prediction? No.
Um, bold prediction. Richarlison to win the Golden Boot. I'm joking.
James is still drunk from
Uh,
New Year's Eve. And on that
um,
note,
I don't. I don't know. The table feels like it's kind of ironing out almost as we'd expect. Maybe let's
it's not
go. Go
as
on then.
Chelsea would expect, mate.
Let's go. Eddie Howe to be England manager
No,
at the
he's going to get
start of
another
next
Premier League job.
season.
I'm going to give you a prediction. I think Luton are going to stay up.
I don't hate that at all.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in after this new year. Welcome to 2024. Thank you for listening to the show. If you want to support it, you know where to go. Other than that, though, stay safe, look after yourselves. Happy New Year. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone. Happy New Year. Play it your way, but try not to make any early transfers. Cue music, please. Man child.